Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Petur Sigurdsson, Product Director for LSPay, and welcome to this webinar on how to sell from the PC back office with LSPay for Business Central. Now, before we dive in, let's do a bit of housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded and we will then distribute the recording alongside the slides to all of the registered participants shortly after the webinar. Now, all participants are in listen-only mode during the webinar, so the way to ask questions is to type your questions into the questions panel in the webinar console. So as we go along, please type in your questions and I will then answer your questions in order in the Q&A part towards the end of the session. And your questions and their respective answers will then be a part of the content that we'll send out shortly after the webinar. And with that, let's dive into the topic of today, which is our new LSPay offering on Business Central, where we are adding frictionless payments to generic sales documents in Business Central. So, dear merchants, if you're using Business Central as your ERP system and you need to accept payments, whether that's card present or card not present payments, then we might have the exact solution for you. But before we dive in and show you our new payment offering, please allow me to provide a bit of context on where we are coming from. So we're going to start with a very short background on our company for those of you who might be new to LS Retail. So as many of you might know, LS Retail has been a part of the Business Central community for a long time. We are classified as a world-leading provider of unified software for retail, hospitality, food service, and forecourt businesses of all sizes. And our experience stretches back well over 30 years. Now, during that time, our leading software solution has been LS Central. And LS Central builds on the solid base of Business Central, extending it to provide our head office, back office, and front office capabilities for retail, hospitality, food and beverage, pharmacies, hotels, and basically all the verticals that we deal in. Now, LS Central has been with us for a long time, and a few years back, we decided to complement it with our own payment offering, our own payment solution, which we call LSPay. And with LSPay, we are providing out-of-the-box payment integrations for LS Central. Now, LSPay was first launched in 2017, and since day one, the objective has always been to offer EFT integrations to the leading PSPs in all of our main market regions, and thereby allowing our customers to have a healthy choice when selecting a payment service provider, which is absolutely necessary in today's fiercely competitive landscape. Now, if we look at our footprint, then since the onset of LSPay, we have now done over 70 integrations to various PSPs around the globe. And at present, we support just over 34 or 35 active PSPs. And that means that if you do the math, there are sometimes multiple integrations per PSP. So for example, we've built around 5 integrations worldwide for Verifone. With Adyen, there are 2 integrations that we support, etc., etc. And then through our PSPs, LSPay supports payments in over 50 countries worldwide. Then if we take a look at some of the PSPs that we have integrated with, then as I like to term it, we see here a healthy mix of both global giants, such as the Adyens, the WorldPays, the Elevons of the world, which cover multiple countries with their services. And we also see local options, such as Network International in the UAE, Nats in Singapore, UnionPay in China, Transbank in Chile, etc., just to name a few mentions. And this is absolutely not a definitive list. So a question that I often get asked is, do we need all these options? Do we need all these PSPs? And the answer is a resounding yes, because there absolutely is not a single PSP that suits every business out there. Now, these PSPs, they all have different sweet spots in terms of merchant turnover. They all offer different levels of features, they all offer different levels of services, and it's all in line to cater for a wide variety of customers, which is exactly what we have achieved now with LS Pay. Now, I think it's safe to say that our customers span the complete spectrum of our LS retail customer base. We have customers ranging from the smallest of shops using our solutions to the global giants of Adidas and IKEA, who use LS Pay to connect to various PSPs all around the world. And again, if we talk footprint numbers, then to date, LS Pay has been deployed at approximately 400 merchants in 39 countries all over the world. And while we continue to add new customers, new PSPs, and new features to LS Pay has until today or until recently only been in scope for the point of sale context, meaning that LS Pay has been supporting all of the platforms that you can run the LS Central point of sale on. So whether that's phones, tablets, traditional point of sale hardware, self-checkout tills, PIN pads, all the way to our Scan Pay Go app, LS Pay supports all these scenarios. And now we are expanding. What we're doing now is that we are adding in support for the back office as well. So in short, we are building on the success of LS Pay for LS Central. We are expanding our focus, and we are now enabling LS Pay for standard Business Central as well. So it gives me great pleasure to announce that earlier this year, we released LS Pay for Business Central, where we are bringing in our large selection and variety of PSPs that we already have with LS Pay, and we are enabling them also for Business Central. So what this means is that we are adding in payment support for generic sales documents in Business Central. And these are your standard sales orders and sales invoices when you're doing sales, and the corresponding sale return orders and sales credit memos when we are doing returns. And as it is with all other apps in the BC ecosystem, this is all published on the Microsoft App Stores. But what's the scope here? What kind of merchants are in play? Well, we can say that the scope here is effectively twofold. Well, first of all, in scope are our existing LS Central merchants that now require back office payment support. So here we are basically referring to merchants that already have LS Central in their point of sale context, but require payments for their back office sales as well. So these could be call centers, these could be remote salespeople, hotels, pharmacies, or just any LS Central business that also sells from their back office. And then, secondly, this is applicable to every merchant using Business Central that doesn't need a point of sale, but still needs to receive payments when selling into sales orders and sales invoices. Now, whether that's in a card present or in a card not present scenario. So the possibilities here in terms of merchants are simply endless. And if we look at some of the prospects that have come our way so far, then we see, for example, suppliers of bathroom installations. We see suppliers of kitchenette installations, radiator supplies, suppliers of electrical installations, car service garages, tire shops, suppliers of building materials to contractors, transport companies, call centers, suppliers of medical supplies, the health sector, the government sector, the judicial system. The list is indeed endless. So if we summarize this and take just two concrete examples of prospects and businesses where this would indeed shine, then, for example, we could speak of a bathroom installation supplier, an establishment where you go to buy tiles, showers, sinks, faucets, toilets, etc., etc. Now, a business like that would, of course, service contractors who might be coming in to buy installations for a 10-apartment condominium, and in that case, they would, of course, charge to their customer accounts. But this establishment, they also need to service walk-in traffic. So the likes of you and I, we go there to buy a replacement for a leaky faucet, or if the thermostat in our shower is getting a little off, then we go in there, we buy these items, and we pay with our credit cards. So this is a prime example of an establishment which doesn't have a point of sale solution. It sells directly into sales documents in BC, and they absolutely need to accept card payments from walk-in traffic. Another key example is just from a personal experience right now. It's winter now in Iceland. I've just put the car on studded winter tires, and a tire shop is exactly also an establishment where this would shine. A tire shop normally doesn't run a point of sale. They are very directly linked to their inventory, so they're sold directly into their business central system, and they indeed need to accept payments from walk-in traffic. So these were just two examples of businesses in scope, but as we've heard from Microsoft, there are now more than 50,000 businesses worldwide that use Business Central as their ERP system, and this number is expected to grow to 70,000 in the next 5 years. And I think we can all realize that, based from the examples that I just mentioned, that a healthy portion of these businesses will have the need to accept payments. But let's turn course and take a look at the solution itself. So how does it all work? I mean, how have we enabled LS Pay for standard Business Central? So let's dive in. Let's build up our design and see how it all comes together. So at the heart of things, as always, we have the LS Pay core engine, where we are basically adding payment plugins onto the core engine, where the role of each and every payment plugin is to contain the integration to a respective PSP, which basically knowing how to communicate with the API that we get from that PSP and to drive the entire estate of devices from that PSP. But we need a host for our LS Pay core engine. And if you are familiar with LS Central, you will know that the host of the payment engine has been the hardware station. But in the context of pure Business Central, the hardware station is, of course, nowhere to be found. So we need a new host for our payment engine. And that brings in play the LS Pay service. Now, the LS Pay service is simply a Windows service that contains the LS Pay engine, and it can be hosted in various deployment scenarios, and it all depends on the pin pads that are effectively being deployed. So if the pin pads are connected to the computer via a physical USB cable, then this service needs to run on each respective computer that connects to the pin pad. But if the pin pads are IP-based, then you could deploy a single instance of the LS Pay service, and then it's up to your discretion whether you host it on-prem or whether you host it in the cloud. But let's continue with our build-up, and next up is the EFT extension. So what we've done here is that our LS Central point of sale team, they have carved out from the POS all EFT-related payment logic. And they placed it into this new extension that we call the EFT extension. So this new EFT extension contains all payment logic and all dialogues that we need for EFT and payments. This extension exposes a payments API that the various solution components can interface. This is the entity that connects to the LS Pay service, and this is a generic Business Central extension. So to summarize, you can simply ask this extension for payment authorization for, let's say, 20 euros, and this extension will handle all the logic, show all the dialogues needed, and simply deliver the response from the authorization request. So you can now ask for payments from everywhere without having to know anything about payments. And this is exactly the exact design that we will be deploying with our LS Central solution. So if we bring this into the larger context, we start with our LS Pay service that contains our LS Pay core engine. Then from version 28 of LS Central will use this new architecture with our POS then asking the EFT extension for payment support equally as our hotel solution will do it, for example, from a back office scenario. And then, because the EFT extension is indeed a Business Central extension, we can use it for Business Central as well. And here it all comes together. Here we can see the great context. Now, what we've done then is that we have created our own LS Pay app, which basically extends the standard sales documents in BC. So in essence, we are just adding in user interface components to support payments. And when those payment buttons are clicked, it's the EFT extension that handles the logic and shows us all the dialogues, just as it will do for LS Central. And then when we get the result of the payment authorization request, our LS Pay app handles the task of adding payments to the respective sales order or sales invoice. It maps all the tender types. It posts everything to the correct GL accounts, basically just responding as needed to the result of the payment request. So what we have here is everything that's needed to handle simplified selling into BC sales documents. So when we started, this was our first pass at all of this. But then in our conversations with our proof of concept partners, it very quickly became apparent that a second option was also needed. And this is why there are indeed two deployment options for our new offering. Now, option one is the LS Pay app, which I've just described. So the context here is that we, LS Retail, we extend the user interface of the standard sales documents. We call the EFT extension for all of the payment logic. And then when we get the response back, we are the ones that respond to the payment result by posting to the respective accounts. So all in all, a simple turnkey solution that is suitable for all merchants that need basic payment support. And then we have the alternative option, option two, which is basically allowing partners to access their EFT extension from their own partner apps. So this scenario here is for the scenario where our merchants or where our partners have already extended or customized the sales documents, and they only need the integrations to the various PSPs. So in this case, the partner or the merchant, they have extended or customized the user interface or the business logic. So the partner will now call the EFT extension for all payment logic. So the partner is responsible to decide where those payment buttons should be placed and when they should be pressed. And when we then return the response from the payment request, the partner will then respond to the payment response by posting to the respective accounts. So all in all, this option is suitable for the perhaps more experienced partners that need control of how payments get posted. I mean, this could be the scenarios where you're shipping from warehouses, etc., or if you need payment support from pretty much anywhere in BC, wherever you need it. So in summary, we can say that option one is for the simpler merchant scenarios where we provide the full solution, whereas option two is for the more complex cases where we don't want to override or disrupt any extensions or customizations that you as partners might have developed. And these are exactly the two apps that you can then download from AppSource, and as I just described, it all depends on which version you need for each respective merchant. Now, if we then look at the features, and starting with the EFT extension for LS Pay, then as I just explained, this is a pure payments API that can be called from various system components. So you as merchants, you as partners, from wherever you need payments, you simply trigger these methods. And then for the LS Pay for LS Pay for Business Central, this is our app where we have added in our user interface additions. So here we see actual features. So the features here are that we support card-present payments and returns, meaning payment support in sales orders, sales invoices, and their corresponding return flows, sales return orders, and sales credit memos. We support card-not-present payments, meaning that we can send out online payment links via email. And we can also support MOTO transactions, mail order, telephone order transactions, which is the case where someone reads out the card number to a sales associate over the phone, and they type in the credit card number in a secure manner into the PIN pad. So that is all supported. We support multiple tender types and their respective mapping to GL accounts, and we support payment profiles. Now, what this means is that we are basically assigning payment terminals to Business Central users. So when I, as a Business Central user, press a payment button, this determines which PIN pad will light up and start the process. So this is all about flexibility and allowing for flexibility. So a single user can be assigned to a single PIN pad. A single user can be assigned to a group of PIN pads. Multiple users can be assigned to a single PIN pad, and then we also can switch profiles, meaning that, for example, if I'm sat behind a desk before lunch, my profile could dictate that I'm connected to my stationary PIN pad, but after lunch I might be on the go, and then my profile switches over to a more mobile one that allows me to attend sales shows, sporting events, or just wherever I might roam. But enough of the talk. Let's see this in action. So I'm going to demonstrate some of the setup concepts and also show you a couple of transactions. So we switch over here, and the first thing we need to do is that we need to create a connection to a PIN pad, and that we do in the LSPay service. So here, as you can see, I've already established two connections, a mock one for just demonstration purposes, and we also have an actual one to an ADN device. So normally we would set up a connection like we have here, and if we expand on the ADN record, we can see here that we have the basic configuration options to connect to an ADN PIN pad, and these are the information, or these are the settings that you pick up from the merchant portal, meaning that the merchant sets things up with, for example, ADN in this context, and then we can pick up all the relevant information from the ADN merchant portal to configure the PIN pad correctly. So in this case, we've already set up a connection to an ADN PIN pad. Next in line, we need to set up a device group in LS Central. So we go into LSPay device groups, and here we have set up two groups. Let's just dive into one of them. This group we call the ADN Verifone device group, and in this case, this might correspond to the example that I just gave, that I'm stationary behind the desk before lunch, and then after lunch I go and act as a mobile or remote salesperson, and then I would need to switch between these two terminals or these two terminal connections. So we've set up a device group with these two terminals. Next thing is to associate a user with this device group. So we go into users. In this case, I'm logged in as Bjarki Páll. And as you can see here on the user card, we have created a category for LSPay where we can now assign a device group to that particular user. We have assigned the ADN Verifone device group to Bjarki. These are the devices, as you might remember, from that particular group, and we only need to select which one is the default device. So when we press the payment buttons in BC, this will be the default device selected, but we can always switch or select the other one as well that we see here. Next in line, we need to do tender type mapping. Here, what we need to do here is just to match the tender types that we receive from the PSPs to the proper GL accounts. And admittedly, this could be way more granular that you see here, and the granularity is absolutely up to the merchant in question, how detailed you want this breakdown to be. But for us, it's enough to have a single GL account association, and you just need to specify which one is the default one, which one is the catch-all GL account. So this is sufficient. So all of the setup is in order right now, and we can go ahead and process a transaction. So in this case, we are just going to create a typical sales invoice. So we press a sales invoice, and now you can see here that what we have added is these two buttons here, payments and creating a payment link. So when we are tendering a sales invoice, we can either do it via card present or card not present payments via the PIN pad, or we can also send an online payment link. So let's go ahead and create one sales invoice. So we add a customer to the transaction. That's the Adatum Corporation. We add an item to the sales invoice. Let's go with this Paris guest chair in black. We are going to have one piece of that, and then we have a total for the sales invoice. Now, when we press the payment button, we get the transaction details window, and here we always get by default the remainder of the transaction, so everything is tendered at once if we so choose, but we can also choose to part pay the transaction to our discretion. So 50 euros with one card, the remainder with another card, that's all supported. We control the transaction posting type, so it can be card, it can be cash, it can be check. We control the authorization type, so by default it's a normal EFT transaction, but we can also switch it over to a Moto one. Remember, if someone needs to read out loud their credit card number, we can activate the terminal in card entry mode, meaning that we can type the card number into the PIN pad in a secure manner. And then pertaining to the profiles that we just discussed, the default selection was an Adyen device, remember, but we can also switch over to a Verifone device if we need that for this transaction. So we press OK, and what happens then is that we activate the Adyen PIN pad that I have here besides me. Unfortunately, you don't get to see that because we don't have a web camera here in this webinar, but I'm tapping my card now, selecting to pay in euros, and since this is a considerable amount, I'm being asked to type in my PIN number. We're going to print only the merchant copy, and we get an approval. So the purchase has been approved, and we get the transaction result window. Everything is approved. Here we can reprint all copies of the receipts, whether it's a merchant copy or the customer receipt copy, and we simply continue. So in the total amount received here, we can click on that field now. We see that we have a success to our purchase request. And if we expand on the options here, we can see that we can go directly in, we can void the transaction, and we can also access the options to do the reprints, as I just said. So all is well. We have completely tendered the sales invoice. So we simply go ahead and we post it. Very good. So that was a typical sales invoice. Let's see a corresponding return flow. Let's create a sales credit memo. So we create a new sales credit memo, and as you can see here, the flow is absolutely similar. We add a new customer to the transaction. We would add an item to the credit memo. Let's just return that same chair. Quantity 1, we have the same amount. And then instead of having a payment button, we have a refund button. And when we press that, we get the same transaction details window, so we can do partial refunds as well. But once we click on this, the terminal that I have besides me goes into refund mode. I tap my card, and the refund is approved. It has been added onto the sales invoice now, and we can simply go ahead and post the credit memo. The last thing I wanted to show you was how we sent out online payment links. So let's go ahead and create a sales order. Because in a sales order context, this is normally where you would have the payment links. So again, we add the standard datum corporation to the transaction. We are going to buy the Athens desk, quantity of 1. We have indeed a total on our sales order, and this time around we are going to create a payment link. So here, as usual, we show you the remainder of the transaction, and we pick up the email address from the customer that we just put on the sales order. So when we press OK now, we are simply connecting to Adyen. Adyen issues a one-time secure payment link, which it returns to us. We then create an email containing that payment link, and we send out that email to the recipient. So the email has now been sent. So if we look at the inbox of that particular user, we have the email. We click on the email, and of course, this email can be tailored to how you want it to look, but here is the link. We click on that, and we are being redirected to Adyen, to their secure payment site, where we can now submit our credit card number for the amount that we just posted. Now, with Adyen, or whichever PSP it is, it's the merchant and the PSP that jointly dictate what kind of payment options are there, whether you can pay with gift cards, regular cards, alternative payment methods, etc., etc. But here you would simply just type in your credit card number, and then in an asynchronous manner, whether it's in 2 minutes or 20 minutes, the PSP will notify us via webhooks that Bjarki Páll has logged on and paid for this, or use this payment link to pay for the sales order, and we notify the user in Business Central. Very good. So this was a sneak peek at some of the features, but let's look at now where we are currently in terms of supported countries and PSPs. And let's start with country support, especially Europe. So in Europe, we have the largest coverage, so to speak. So we support just over 30 countries in Europe. And if we look at the roadmap for Europe, we are going to expand more into Eastern Europe. And that means that we will be integrating with local PSPs in Eastern Europe. And we are also reaping from the benefits of our currently supported PSPs expanding into Eastern Europe. So, but you will all see this, you can dive into this into the slides when we post them after the webinar. In the Americas, we support Brazil, Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and of course the United States. Then for APAC, we have support for Australia, Hong Kong, Japan, Malaysia, New Zealand, and Singapore. And on the immediate roadmap for APAC is also the Philippines. And then in the Middle East, we are starting there with the UAE, but on the immediate roadmap are also India, South Africa, and Saudi Arabia. But the list here of supported countries, it's dictated basically by two things. We obviously need Business Central to be supported in a country if we are to support it. And then our support largely depends on the PSPs that we deal in. So we reap the benefits of where the PSPs are supported or which countries they support. So if we have integrated with a payment service provider, then all of the countries that they support are automatically supported by us as well. And speaking of the PSPs, I spoke of earlier that we support just over 35 active PSPs in LSP. And the thing to note here is that there is a slight body of work needed to activate a PSP into this new offering on Business Central. And hence, we are approaching this sequentially, adding in payment service providers by demand. And these are the payment service providers that we have activated on our new BC offering as to date. Adyen, Verifone, WorldPay, FreedomPay, Nats. So this is the Nordic Nats, not the Singaporean Nats. Elavon, DNA Payments, Planet, Strömur, and Teia. And this selection is heavily based on demand, as I said. So if there is a PSP you need, then we can simply activate it within our offering in a very quick fashion. So you just simply need to let us know which PSPs you need. And then the ever important note on security. We only team up with pre-PCI certified payment service providers. And this holds true with our Business Central offering equally as it does with LSPay for LS Central. So what this means is that when we send an authorization request out to a payment terminal, we are completely oblivious as to what is happening on the terminal and completely in the blind towards what's happening in the communication with the gateway and the acquirer. So that means that we are completely shielded from any sensitive data. So LSPay never receives any sensitive data, hence we can never store it, and hence we are never in scope for any PCI-related vulnerabilities, and we are never in scope for any PCI certifications, so no costly certifications for neither us, our partners, nor our merchants. Then, just to give you a hint of what's to come, what's on our roadmap, and this is a combination of where we want to go and also what's been requested from our merchant and partners. In no particular order, we see automatic reconciliation. So this is all about receiving settlement files from the PSPs so we can automatically compare them to our records and flag any discrepancies for resolution. We see asks of virtual terminal support. So this is effectively more support for card not present payments. So this is requested in a few countries, Australia, the UK, and the US in particular. So this pertains to the scenario where someone is reading out their card number over the phone, but in this case, the sales associate is entering the card number into an online virtual PIN pad instead of a physical one, and thereby minimizing how many actual PIN pads the merchant needs to purchase or lease from the PSP. So this is just cost efficiency. We've been asked to cater for service orders as well. So as you know, we do sales orders, we do sales invoices, and we've been asked to do this or provide payment support for service orders as well, to cater, for example, for bicycle repair shops, car service centers, etc., etc. And then by far our most prioritized roadmap element, and that is tokenization. And I'm very happy to disclose that this is currently in full development. So LSPay already supports tokenization, but what we are lacking is for the EFT extension in Business Central to be able to store these tokens and then to act on them at a later time. So the typical scenarios that I'm referring to here is the capability to have card on file and to be able to do pre-auths and then subsequent full captures. And then last but definitely not least in our priority queue is basically to add in support for more PSPs. And here we see the ones that we have currently identified as potential additions. So we have Shift4 and Stripe, both in North America and Europe. We have Network International and NeoPay in the Middle East. We have Monry in the Balkan countries. And then we are also looking at CM and pay.nl in Europe. But what happens then if you need support for a payment service provider that isn't on our list of supported PSPs? Well, you simply just request it. So very often we will conclude that your suggestion would be a brilliant addition to our product, and we'll simply schedule it for development. But sometimes our development queue might be a bit congested due to previous commitments, or maybe our timelines do not align with yours. So in that case, we can then always refer you to our professional services, which then can fast track your request. And what we're discussing here is basically having the ability to bypass our development queue and start the project instantly. So this is a very common process here at LS Retail, and the process that is utilized by many of our key merchants. One of them, for example, being Adidas. So Adidas is one of LS Retail's strategic customers, and they are leveraging our use of LS Central and LS Pay globally. So Adidas, they are effectively on a global upgrade path. So they are upgrading LS Central in their multiple countries. And in these countries, they are using LS Pay. So they are either using LS Pay currently supported PSPs, or they are enlisting our professional services to create integrations to different PSPs based on which PSP has won the tender in that particular country. So if we just take a quick look of how this process works, then the first thing to note that this is, of course, a paid assignment that utilizes our professional services team. And as with everything that they do, they will issue a statement of work, which is basically a contract for delivery, stating what will be done and in which time frame. This is all based on time and material, so there is a fixed cap on the cost. But if the assignment takes less time, then obviously the total amount will be less. Now, it comes with a really short lead time because we have a number of consultants that know how to do LS Pay integrations. So the next available consultant is always in queue, and this is an average lead time of a week or two. Now, in terms of the development effort, the typical timeline is approximately 3 months, and it handles all the development efforts and also the subsequent certifications with the PSP. But the thing to note here is that this is not a one-off consulting task. This is with full support from the LS Pay team. It uses our development processes, and you might think of it in a way that we are simply temporarily extending the LS Pay development team by adding on this consultant. So what this means is that the integration, the result of all of this is a payment integration that is incorporated into the standard LS Pay product, and the LS Pay team will continue to maintain it and support it onwards. So if this sounds interesting, then how do you get started? Well, first of all, feel free to contact us directly. There are multiple ways for this. You can contact me directly. You can reach us via our webpage, or you can also, of course, find us on the Microsoft App Stores. So simply search for LS Pay, and when you've located our extensions, press the Contact Me button, and we'll get back to you instantly with the download links, which you can then use to try this out in a sandbox environment, or you can do a full production install. Licensing-wise, we have, or this employs the exact same license model as with LS Pay for LS Central, but instead of numbering the number of, or counting the number of POSs, we are counting the number of connected pin pads. So you need equally as many LS Pay licenses as you have pin pads. Now, this is of course available in SaaS and on-prem as well, and on-prem it's either via subscription or a perpetual license. And the price list, it's available on the LS Central portal, also available by demand, but it carries the exact same licensing cost as LS Pay for LS Central. And then just before we break for questions, just a quick reminder of our upcoming Connection event, which is our LS Retail conference and expo for our customers and partners. So as you might be aware, we are hosting this year's event in Wiesbaden in Germany, and this is an excellent opportunity to get first-hand updates from LS Retail leadership, our industry expert, and our technology specialists. So everyone, if you already secured your ticket, then well done. If not, then I encourage you to do so, as we are very much looking forward to meeting all of you and spending some quality time together. If you have more questions, then feel free to reach out, and I'll be happy to schedule a call and discuss. But everyone, that's it for us today. Thanks a lot for attending this webinar, and we really hope that you share our enthusiasm for the great potential of LS Pay for Business Central. And as I said, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be happy to meet up, do a demo, or discuss. So everyone, take care, enjoy the rest of your day. So thank you and goodbye.